Welcome, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Schup Sports Podcast, Morning Coffee Edition. I got my Dunkin' latte here. This video is not sponsored by Dunkin', but I do love their coffee. But we are going to talk about college basketball. On the eve of the Final Four, where is college basketball heading? Because if you look at the tournament this year, it's got maybe the most unpredictable field, even going back to the start of the tournament, but especially going back to the start of the season. 4 teams who haven't had much success in the last 5 years, but 75% of them have never been to a Final Four before. How wonderful is that? I mean, you got the traditional blue blood in UConn, who won 2 chaotic tournaments like this before in the past decade, when they were a 3 seed, beating Kentucky team, who was also not a top 2 seed. And then the year that they beat Butler as well, when Butler made it all the way as an 8 seed. Well, we could see some history this year, as we already have one team who is a 9 seed in the Florida Atlantic Owls. If no team has ever made it to a championship that was lower than an 8 seed, and that was Villanova back in 1985, and also North Carolina last year. But it wasn't just the fact that Florida Atlantic was a 9 seed, but the fact that this Florida Atlantic team nearly lost to FDU in the round of 32, and then nearly lost again to Tennessee, and nearly lost again to Kansas State. You can even go back to the first round of Memphis. They had to hit a buzzer beater to win that game. They've truly been remarkable this postseason. How they've managed ways to find victory, dig deep, and John L. Davis, he's their star player, star point guard. He's the clutch shot maker, playmaker. But they've got a lot of guys on that team that are athletic, can shoot threes. They have a 7-footer in the middle. So this team is very complete. And a lot of people were saying that this team is extremely underseeded. And you know what? They might be right. We know how the selection committee loves to give precedence or power over to the power 6 conferences, if you will, in basketball. They love to give power to the power 6 conferences because they tend to get more viewers, and putting them in more high profile games, that allows for more like 6-11 matchups to happen, like your Iowa State versus Pittsburgh, 2 not huge fan bases, but bigger fan bases than Florida Atlantic. But yeah, so they wanted to put Florida Atlantic versus Memphis in the first round so they could get so they could only have to deal with one small fan base after that round. Well, didn't work out for them because FDU beat Purdue and ruined that. And FAU proceeded to ruin everyone's brackets by going all the way to the Final Four. But what about the 2 5 seeds that made it? Because they're almost equally as unlikely. Look at San Diego State. I don't think a single person out there had them beating Alabama. I didn't. I certainly didn't. And who could blame you? Through San Diego State's tournament history, they had never even made it to an Elite 8 before, which they had to do in beating Alabama, that's what they had to do in order to make the Elite 8. The best team they ever fielded was during the COVID year when they went 30-2. And many people said that was their year. This didn't seem quite like it this year. I mean, the Mountain West, they had a couple of tournament teams, but they didn't have San Diego State, that is, didn't have an overly strong record this year. But man, their defense, they played some really elite offenses throughout this entire tournament. And you can just look at Creighton, who was shooting the lights off of Princeton and Baylor and every tournament and every team that they came across throughout this recent stretch of the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament. And San Diego State just eliminated their shot making, all their high 3-point plays. And San Diego State transformed, as they do, they transformed the games to their speed. You know, Alabama can run teams up and down the court if they please. And in fact, Alabama had a lead in that second half, but San Diego State just continued to play pesky, polarizing defense. That's got them to where they are now. And now, one of those two teams that I mentioned, them or Florida Atlantic, will be in the national championship. And Miami, Florida. Miami is not a basketball school. They've had their fair share of moments, you know, some good players in the past. And they've made a few runs to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, including last year as a 10 seed. But this year it feels a little bit different. You know, they go on to, you know, play a tight game with Drake. Drake was a popular upset candidate to beat Miami. Coffee break. Anyway, so a lot of people predicted Drake to win that game. Didn't happen. Miami goes on, makes it to the Sweet 16, plays Houston, the favorite to win the national championship. No injuries, no reported injuries, that is. And Miami just held them from three. They made 0 3-pointers in that second half. Houston was a little bit cold, but the defense was swarming, especially on their backcourt press defense. Combine that with all the athletes they have on the floor and their ability to find and create shots. I don't think anyone wants to play this Miami team. Even the juggernaut UConn team that's blown out every team by 20 points this tournament. Miami has been a very pesky defense. So we talked about these three teams. FAU, scrappy team, finds ways to victory. San Diego State brings teams down to their level defensively. And Miami, athletes all over the floor, swarming defense. What I don't really mention is, you know, their star player carry them to the victory. Obviously, they have stars. I mean, Trammell on San Diego State, and then King on Miami, and you have the role players as well. But they're not led by a single star. It's a collection of guys who follow the coach's mindsets, and it has worked amazingly. You can even argue that with UConn too. Hawkins has been the star of the tournament for UConn, but he's not necessarily the guy that they rely on. They have so many different components of that team. They're a deep team. And that's kind of how the way that college basketball has been heading. So yesterday, a news article came out with Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo was concerned about the long-term view of college basketball regarding the transfer portal. See, what he's saying is the transfer portal it's not his exact words, but what he basically is saying is it's giving kids, you know, a way out, an easy way out, an easy excuse out of building with a team, competing for spots. Essentially, what these kids in the transfer portal are doing now is if they're not feeling like they have the right opportunity at the current place they are, instead of just working towards and trying to earn a starting spot on that team, they can just leave and find another starting spot. And I can understand the concern with that from his perspective, especially from a coach's perspective. Sneeze. I can understand where he's coming from a coach's perspective. I mean, it sucks. You have a group of guys, and you're feeling some momentum. Like, let's say you're Tom Izzo, for example. You get your team to a Sweet 16 as a 7 seed. You want to bring that momentum back for the following season, but you have no idea what your roster is going to look like. This is kind of similar to the one and done era where teams would cycle out freshmen, but a lot of times coaches would know, okay, these guys are out of here after this year. Now it's unpredictable. I mean, you got Michigan's Hunter Dickinson entering a transfer portal, Caleb Love, another member of that Final Four from 2 years ago, now in the transfer portal. These are big names at your school. Like, why? Why not try to make it work at your school? All it's done is cause over 1,200 players to enter the transfer portal. And we're not even done with this season yet. Players have until May to enter the transfer portal. So we're going to see a lot more names. And before I get to my main point, I want to mention that at the end of the day, college basketball, as much as we love the entertainment, is not so much about the entertainment. It's about, kids being granted the opportunity to get an education through the sport that they play. So when these kids transfer 1 or 2 times, all it's going to do is make it more difficult for them to get their degrees. So, if this is what the NCAA wants to encourage, then so be it. Because the NCAA should be supporting the colleges that they represent. And if these colleges would welcome, getting kids to enroll in their educational programs and play for their schools. So it's a free market. But I'm going to tell you why this is a good thing for college basketball overall. So, and this is some to do with the sport, but a lot to do with, 18 to 22-year-old kids nowadays in general. Gone are the days where getting you a college degree necessitates working a good career. And the reason for that is because of social media and the power to reach people at no matter what age you are, the power to reach people and make money based on advertisements or sponsors, affiliate marketing. The ability to do that has allowed a lot of these athletes to make careers based on how well they do online. And you can also point to NIL. NIL is offering like $1 million salaries to a lot of these players to represent in advertisements and marketing. So players have avenues other than going to the workforce and getting a regular job, just like the rest of us, to make money. So we like to say this degree is some shining accomplishment, but there's more bachelor's degrees out there than ever before. But more than that, that's not what's important to these players. A lot of these players want to go to the Division I level to win a national championship or to win their conference championship if they can't get to that Division I level. But every player would love to win the national championship. Look at Kansas State. Kansas State had 2 returning players to their team, not starters, 2 returning players. The entirety of the rest of their team was made up of transfer guys. And they were able to parlay that into an Elite 8 run. A traditional power like Kansas State, it might take them, well, they're not traditional power, but nonetheless, a very good athletic program, because Power 6 conference. It would have taken more time to rebuild, but now they can just get more talent and jump right back into the playing field. And what this has allowed is, if you're a fan of a team like Kansas State, or if you're a fan of a team like in Alabama, who's not traditionally a big-time program, well, now, if you have a down year, you can come back easily the next year based on who you get in the transfer portal. With the rise of the G League and the potentiality of the NBA cutting the minimum age down to 18 to enter the NBA draft, the one and done era is almost pretty much over with. The idea of the Dukes and Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Villanovas, North Carolinas, all those teams dominating year after year could still happen, but it's not so much of a lock, a guarantee like it used to be. Now the playing field is expanded to where guys would rather get playing time on a not so blue blood program in order to prove, get their minutes and prove themselves as a viable part of a roster and maybe make a better name for themselves if they do want to make it to the NBA. Whereas before, if you were on a team and you felt like your coach wasn't getting the best out of you, or you were stuck behind another extremely good player, well, now you have the opportunity to go make a name elsewhere. So if these players, if they want to deal with the hassle of moving colleges, moving their life around, maybe possibly waiting longer to getting a degree, not building that same rapport with teammates, all that other stuff, then let them do it. Because at the end of the day, we watch this for entertainment. And has the entertainment quality gone down because of these rules? Absolutely not. Most people don't watch a lot of college basketball until it gets to like February, March, where the tournament talk starts to heat up. And even if a lot of people don't even watch until the tournament starts, which is understandable. So why are they going to care how a player develops over the season? They don't. They want to watch the tournament and they want to see a bunch of really good games. And there have been more really tight, close, contested games than I've ever seen in any tournament ever before this year. And it's only going to continue as players move around and find better spots for themselves and are able to make something out of nothing. What I will say, though, is a lot of these kids are misguided. They're expected to make big decisions at such a young age. And a lot of them, what I'm going to say is if you're going to enter the transfer portal, you should have good reason to do so. And because I feel like a lot of these guys either overestimate their abilities or simply just give up too easily. So I don't think it's good for the player, but like anything in life, like if you want to switch careers or if you want to, take on a higher position, whatever you want to do in life, switch majors, anything that's inherently risky, it's going to come with those risks. And I actually think it's good for players like to find out, to take those risks for themselves and see what happens. So Tom Izzo is scared that it's not building loyalty, but since when did we come up with the idea that we had to stick with one thing? I get like players are not dealing with the adversity of trying to compete for a roster spot, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to all work less because they're transferring and they're, quote, guaranteed a spot. These players work on their own accord, and with the way basketball has expanded, the AAU leagues have been more intense than ever. So basketball players are getting better than ever. And if you want to be good, you damn well better practice hard, compete hard, because every spot across the entire college basketball landscape is earned. So, in conclusion, while it may not be the best decision for the athlete themselves to be transferring, it is damn great for college basketball because it increases parity. It increases the likelihood that your favorite team can make it next year, no matter what your circumstances are this year. And it levels the playing field of traditional powers and opens it up so that your favorite team could realistically win the national championship this year. Even if you're a fan of Chicago State. Okay, maybe not that one. But anyway, thank you for joining me in my morning coffee session. This is Schup, and I am signing out.